The signal came through the darkness of space. It was weak and full of fear. The ship's computer picked it up and sent it to the bridge. Captain Jack Morrison stood in front of the main screen on the Earth Defense ship Valiant. He was a tall man with gray hair and deep lines on his face. The message played through the speakers, and everyone on the bridge stopped what they were doing to listen. "This is the Valerian colony ship Peaceful Dawn. We are under attack. The Krithak swarm is destroying us. Our weapons don't work anymore. We have 14,000 people on this ship. Most of them are families. We have only a few hours left. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us. Our children are dying." The bridge went silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They all knew what this meant. Ben Hayes was the first to break the silence. He was the navigator, a young man with quick hands and a sharp mind. "Captain, the Valerians are 3 sectors away. If we push the engines to maximum, we can get there in 16 hours. "What about our other ships?" Morrison asked. Lisa Grant checked her screen. She was in charge of weapons and tactical planning. "The Horizon and the Defiant can keep up with us. The Sentinel is further away but can catch up in a couple of hours." Morrison looked at the star map on the big screen. The Valerians were a peaceful race. They ate plants and never hurt anyone. They had only learned how to travel faster than light 20 years ago. When they met humans, they were kind and friendly. Most other alien races were scared of humans because Earth was known as a dangerous death world. But the Valerians didn't care about that. "Sir," Commander Amy Rodriguez said quietly. She was Morrison's second in command. "The Krethak are like insects. They work together like a hive. If they sent enough ships to beat the Valerians, we could be facing hundreds of enemy ships. And we only have 3 ships, about to be 4, Morrison said. "I know the numbers, Commander. Our orders say we should patrol the border. We're not supposed to get involved in fights that aren't ours," Rodriguez reminded him. But her voice told him she already knew what he would decide. Morrison looked at the timestamp on the message. Every minute they waited was another minute those people suffered. He thought about his own daughter back home on Earth. He imagined her trapped on a dying ship with monsters trying to kill her. "Set course for the Valerian ship," he said. "Maximum speed. Contact the fleet. Tell them humanity is going to help." The crew moved fast. Within minutes, the Valiant's engines roared to life. The ship pushed forward at speeds that would tear apart most alien ships. But human ships were built different. They were built tough, just like the humans who made them. 3 Earth ships shot through space toward the battle. Inside each ship, everyone got ready for war. Danny Chen started charging up the big rail guns. Dr. Claire Martinez prepared the medical bay for wounded people. Marine Commander Rick Santos called his soldiers together. "People call us Deathworlders," Santos told his Marines. They stood in rows, wearing their combat armor. "They think we're crazy because we come from a planet that tried to kill us every day. A world with monsters, diseases, storms, and gravity that would crush most aliens. You know what? They're right. We are crazy. And today we're going to show the Krethak what happens when they attack innocent people while humans are watching." The Marines shouted and cheered. They were ready to fight. On the bridge, Morrison watched the countdown clock. 15 hours and 32 minutes until they reached the battle. He opened a video link to the other ship captains. Nick Foster commanded the Horizon. He was an old soldier with scars on his face and a mean grin. Kelly Shaw commanded the Defiant. She was younger, but just as tough. "What do you think?" Morrison asked them. Foster smiled wide. "I think we should show these bugs what happens when you make humans angry." Shaw nodded. "The Valerians were kind to us when other aliens were afraid. We owe them this." "Agreed," Morrison said. "We go in fast and hit hard. Our ships are stronger than anything the Krethak have. We use that." After the meeting ended, Morrison recorded a message to send back to Earth Command. If something bad happened, someone needed to know that humans tried to help. "This is Captain Jack Morrison of the EDS Valiant. We got a distress call from a Valerian civilian ship. They're being attacked by Krethak forces. We're going to help them with all the ships we have. If we don't come back, tell everyone we died doing what humans do best. We died protecting people who couldn't protect themselves." He sent the message into space and sat down in his command chair. The ship hummed around him. The engines pushed them faster and faster through the darkness. 15 hours to go. 15 hours until they reached the battle. 15 hours until they would either save 14,000 innocent lives or die trying. Morrison thought about all the reasons they shouldn't go. The odds were bad. They were outnumbered. This wasn't their fight. They could die out here, far from home, for aliens they didn't really know. But then he thought about the message. He thought about the fear in that alien captain's voice. He thought about 14,000 people, most of them families with children, waiting to die. He thought about what it meant to be human. Humans came from Earth. Earth was a Class 12 death world. That meant it was one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. Everything on Earth evolved to survive in a place that tried to kill them constantly. Gravity twice as strong as most worlds. Predators that hunted in packs, diseases that could wipe out whole cities, weather that could destroy everything in its path, earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, tsunamis, and humans survived it all, more than survived. They thrived. They became the top predator on a planet full of predators. They built cities and ships and weapons. They looked at the deadly world around them and said, "We will not give up. We will not surrender. We will fight." That same spirit lived in every human. It lived in Morrison and his crew. It lived in the Marines getting ready for battle. It lived in the engineers keeping the engines running. It lived in the doctors preparing to save lives. The Krethak thought they were strong because they worked together like insects in a hive. They thought they could overwhelm anyone with numbers. They had probably never fought humans before. They didn't know what it meant to face a species that simply refused to lose. Morrison smiled to himself. The Krethak were about to learn a hard lesson. You don't threaten children while humans are around. You don't attack the innocent and expect no consequences. And you definitely don't expect humans to follow the rules when lives are on the line. The clock counted down. 14 hours and 58 minutes. The Valiant raced through space, followed by the Horizon and the Defiant. Behind them, the Sentinel pushed its engines hard to catch up. 4 human ships heading into impossible odds. But humans had faced impossible odds before. They did it every day on Earth. They did it when they first left their planet and found a galaxy full of older, stronger species who looked down on the Valiant, dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and every alarm started screaming at once. The bridge lit up with red warning lights. The crew grabbed their stations and stared at the screens. "Contact!" Lisa Grant shouted over the noise. "I'm reading 73 Krethak ships. No, wait. More are showing up. 89 ships total. They're all around the Valerian ship like a swarm." Morrison gripped the arms of his chair. The tactical screen showed a nightmare. The peaceful dawn hung in space with huge holes in its hull. Air and debris leaked out into the void. The Krethak ships circled it like sharks around wounded prey. Each enemy ship looked like a giant wasp made of metal and chitin. "The Horizon and Defiant just arrived behind us," Ben Hayes said. "The Sentinel is still 90 minutes away. 3 human ships, 90 enemy ships. The math was not good." "Captain, the Valerian ship is calling us," the communications officer said. A hologram appeared in front of Morrison. The Valerian commander was tall and thin with 4 arms and big, gentle eyes. Those eyes were filled with desperation and something else. Hope. "Human vessel," the Valerian spoke through the translator device. "You came. By all the gods, you actually came. Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Ship Valiant, we're here to get you out. How many Krethak are inside your ship?" "Hundreds," the Valerian said. His voice shook. "They broke through on the decks 4 through 7. We locked all the civilians in the upper sections. But our security forces can't fight them. We're herbivores, Captain. We have no soldiers." "We don't know how to fight." Morrison saw movement behind the Valerian commander. Children, dozens of them. Their big eyes were wide with fear. Some were crying. Others just stared in shock. "You don't need to fight them," Morrison said. "That's why we're here. Hold your position. Don't give up. We're coming to get you out." He cut the connection and looked at Amy Rodriguez. "Commander, get a boarding party ready. I want every Marine we have suited up and ready to go. We're going to clear that ship room by room." "Sir, the Krethak fleet is moving," Lisa warned. "They're coming toward us." "Then let's show them what happens when you mess with Earth," Morrison said. He opened a channel to all 3 human ships. "All ships, you are free to fire. Show these bugs why you don't attack humans." The 3 human ships split up. The Valiant dove straight down. The Horizon banked to the left. The Defiant went right. The Krethak swarm had to split up to chase them all. The Krethak ships were fast, and there were many of them. But they were built to win by using numbers. The human ships were built for war. The Valiant's railguns opened fire. Tungsten slugs shot out at incredible speed. Each slug carried so much kinetic energy that when it hit something, the target just exploded. The first Krethak ship that got in the way simply disintegrated. One moment it was there. The next moment it was a cloud of debris. "Target the bigger ships," Morrison ordered. "Clear us a path to the peaceful dawn." Danny Chen worked his console fast. More railgun rounds tore through space. Missiles followed behind them, their engines burning bright as they locked onto Krethak vessels. Human weapons were not as pretty as the energy weapons most aliens used, but they worked. They worked very well. A Krethak ship got close enough to shoot back. Its bioelectric weapons crackled across the Valiant's hull. The lights flickered, but the armor held. Humans built their ships to take damage. Earth taught them that everything in the universe wanted to kill you, so they built everything tough enough to survive. "Minor damage to outer hull," the damage control officer reported. "Nothing serious." "Return fire," Morrison said calmly. The Valiant's point defense lasers tracked the enemy ship and cut it to pieces. On the horizon, Captain Foster was laughing like a crazy man as his ship smashed through the Krethak formation. 3 enemy ships shot at him. The horizon shook from the impacts but kept going. Foster's guns answered back and 2 of the 3 attackers exploded. The Defiant was smaller and faster than the other ships. It weaved between enemy vessels, its weapons creating a deadly pattern. Every shot found a target. Every target died. But the Krethak kept coming. There were so many of them. "Captain, we have a clear path to the peaceful dawn," Ben Hayes announced. Morrison nodded to Rick Santos. "Commander, your Marines are clear to go. Get those civilians out of there." Santos saluted. "Yes, sir. With pleasure." The Valiant pulled up next to the damaged Valerian ship. The 2 vessels matched speed and direction. Docking tubes extended from the Valiant like arms reaching out. Within minutes, the tubes connected and locked. The doors opened. Human Marines poured into the peaceful dawn. What they found inside was worse than anyone expected. The corridors were a mess. The Krethak had torn through the lower decks like a natural disaster. Dead Valerian security officers lay where they fell. Some had been cut apart by the Krethak's sharp mandibles. Others had been dragged away, probably to feed the hive. Emergency lights cast everything in red. Smoke drifted through the air. Somewhere in the distance, something was screaming. Rick Santos led his Marines through the breach point. Their combat armor had sensors that could see in the dark and through smoke. Each Marine carried heavy weapons, assault rifles with explosive rounds, plasma cutters, combat knives, grenades. "Fan out by squad," Santos ordered into his radio. "Rules are simple. Anything with more than 2 legs is an enemy. Watch your corners. Watch each other's backs." Squad leader Lucy Patterson took her team down a corridor toward where the Valerians were hiding. The sound of their boots on metal echoed in the damaged ship. Then they heard it. A chittering, clicking sound that made their skin crawl. It was the sound of many legs moving fast, the sound of hunters closing in. "Contact front," Patterson said quietly into her comm. The Krethak came out of the shadows. They were the size of large dogs, but much more dangerous. They had razor-sharp mandibles that could cut through metal. Multiple legs let them crawl on walls and ceilings. Their compound eyes reflected the Marines' lights like tiny mirrors. Each one looked like a nightmare made real. But the Krethak expected to find more soft, scared Valerians. Instead, they found humans. And humans were not soft. Humans were from a death world. Humans were apex predators, wearing advanced armor and carrying weapons designed to kill. Patterson didn't hesitate. Her rifle barked. The explosive rounds hit the lead Krethak and blew it apart. Her squad opened fire behind her. A wall of gunfire cut down the first wave of attackers in seconds. "Keep moving," Santos commanded over the radio. "Don't let them slow you down." More Krethak appeared. They dropped from air vents in the ceiling. They came through holes in the walls. They were fast, and they were fearless. The Hive had bred them for war. But humans were bred for war too. Earth had bred them for 4 billion years. Marine Jake Miller found himself face-to-face with a Krethak warrior that dropped behind his position. The creature jumped at him, mandibles wide open, ready to tear him apart. Miller didn't have time to bring his rifle around, so he did something simple. He punched it. His armored fist, backed by muscles that evolved in Earth's heavy gravity, connected with the creature's head. The exoskeleton cracked. The Krethak fell, stunned. Miller pulled out his sidearm and finished it. "Did you just knock out an alien bug with your fist?" his teammate asked. "It worked, didn't it?" Miller replied. Santos and his team reached the barricade where the Valerians had made their last stand. The herbivorous aliens had piled up furniture and equipment to block a corridor, but the Krethak were tearing through it. Valerian security officers, armed only with shock sticks meant for crowd control, were trying desperately to hold them back. "United States Marines!" Santos bellowed. "Get down now!" The Valerians hit the floor. Santos and his team opened fire. The Krethak attacking the barricade didn't have time to understand what was happening. In 30 seconds, they were all dead. Santos walked up to the barricade. "Captain Morrison sent us. We're getting everyone out." A Valerian security chief looked up at the armored human. His uniform was torn and bloody. One of his arms hung limp. "You're really here. The Deathworlders really came to save us." Lucy Patterson's squad cornered a group of Krethak in a cargo bay. The insects had nowhere to run. They could have surrendered. But the Krethak didn't understand surrender. They charged forward, choosing to die fighting rather than give up. Patterson's team gave them exactly what they wanted. The gunfire echoed through the cargo bay. When the last Krethak fell, Patterson took a moment to catch her breath. Her armor's display showed her heart rate and breathing. Both were elevated but within normal range. She had been in worse fights. "Command, Cargo Bay 7 is clear," she reported into her radio. "Moving to Deck 5. All across the ship, similar reports came in. Squad after squad cleared their assigned areas. The human Marines were relentless. They were unstoppable. And they were absolutely terrifying to the Krethak who had thought themselves the apex predators of this sector. The Krethak had been fighting Valerians. Valerians were peaceful plant-eaters who had security forces but no real soldiers. Their shock sticks were meant to stop shoplifters, not fight wars. The Krethak had been winning easily against them. But humans were different. Humans carried guns that fired explosive rounds. Humans wore armor that could take direct hits. Humans fought with a coordination and ruthlessness that came from millions of years of evolution on a death world. Humans didn't panic. Humans didn't run. Humans just kept coming forward, killing everything in their path. On Deck 4, Rick Santos himself led the final push to clear the engineering section. The Krethak had concentrated their forces there. They were trying to take control of the ship's remaining systems. It was the biggest fight of the day. Santos and his Marines breached the door to main engineering. Inside, they found at least 100 Krethak warriors waiting for them. The insects had fortified the position. They had built barricades from equipment. They had set up defensive positions in the catwalks above. "Grenades!" Santos shouted. Marines threw grenades over the barricades. The explosions ripped through the Krethak positions. Then the Marines charged in behind the blasts. The battle for main engineering was chaos. Humans and Krethak fought at close range. Marines used their rifles like clubs when enemies got too close. They used their combat knives when ammunition ran low. They used their fists and boots when they had nothing else. Corporal Tim Blake found himself wrestling with a Krethak that had jumped on his back. The creature's mandibles scraped against his helmet, trying to find a weak spot. Blake slammed himself backward into a wall. The impact crushed the Krethak between his armor and the metal bulkhead. He felt it go limp and dropped it. Private Sarah Lopez fired her plasma cutter at a group of Krethak trying to flank her position. The superheated beam cut through chitin like butter. The aliens fell, their bodies smoking. Santos lost 2 Marines in that battle. Sergeant Mike Crawford took a direct hit from a Krethak's bioelectric weapon. The charge overloaded his suit's systems and stopped his heart. Corporal Diana Ross was killed when a ceiling collapsed, dropping 3 Krethak on top of her. She took all 3 with her, but died in the process. But the humans won. They always won, because humans didn't know how to quit. 4 hours after the boarding began, the last Krethak on the Peaceful Dawn was eliminated. The ship was secure. "All decks clear," Santos reported to Morrison. His voice was tired but satisfied. "The ship is secure. Beginning civilian evacuation now." In the cargo bays where the Valerians had been hiding, families slowly emerged from their shelters. They had been hiding for hours, listening to the sounds of battle. They had heard the Krethak chittering and clicking. They had heard gunfire and explosions. They had heard screaming. Now they heard something else. Heavy boots. The sound of armored humans walking through the corridors. "It's okay," a Marine called out in Valerian. The translator made his words understandable. "The bad guys are gone. We're here to get you out. You're safe now." The Valerians came out slowly at first, then faster as they realized it was true. The monsters were gone. The humans had killed them all. A young Valerian child, no more than 5 in human years, approached Lucy Patterson. The Marine was checking her weapon, making sure it was ready in case more Krethak appeared. She looked up and saw the child staring at her. Patterson removed her helmet. Her face was covered in sweat and streaked with dirt. She had a bruise on her cheek and a cut on her forehead. But she smiled at the child. "Thank you," the child said in broken English. "You saved us. You saved everyone." Patterson knelt down, so she was at eye level with the child. "That's what we do, kid. When someone needs help, humans come running. That's just who we are." The child hugged her. Patterson hugged back, careful of her armor. Around them, other Valerians were doing the same. They were hugging Marines, crying, thanking them in multiple languages. Some just stood and stared in wonder at these warriors from the legendary Deathworld who had crossed the stars to save them. An older Valerian, a female with silver leaves growing from her head, approached Santos. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why did you risk your lives for us? We are nothing to you. We are just herbivores from a weak species. Why did you come?" Santos looked at her. He thought about how to answer. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said finally. "Because you called for help and we heard you. Because there were children in danger and we couldn't just ignore that. Because that's what humans do. We fight for those who can't fight for themselves." "But you lost people," the Valerian said. She had seen the bodies of Crawford and Ross being carried back to the Valiant. "2 of your warriors died saving us." "Yes," Santos said. His voice was heavy with grief. "And they knew the risks. They knew they might die, but they came anyway because some things are more important than personal safety. Protecting innocent lives is one of those things." The evacuation took another 2 hours. 14,000 Valerians had to be moved from the peaceful Dawn to the human ships. The Valiant took 6,000. The Horizon took 5,000. The Defiant, even with damage to its bridge, took 3,000. The human ships were crowded. Valerians sat in corridors and cargo bays. They filled every available space, but nobody complained. The humans gave up their own quarters to families with children. They shared their food. They provided medical care to the wounded. Dr. Claire Martinez and her medical team worked without stopping. They treated Valerian injuries, most of them from when the Krethak first attacked. Burns, cuts, broken bones, trauma. Martinez had never treated Valerian patients before. Their biology was different from humans. But she adapted quickly, learning as she went. "You're going to be okay," she told a Valerian mother whose arm had been badly burned. "The pain medication should kick in soon. Your daughter is fine. She's in the next room with my nurse." The Valerian mother's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I thought we were going to die. I thought I would never see her grow up." "You're safe now," Martinez said, "and you're going to see her grow up and have children of her own. That's a promise." Back on the bridge, Morrison watched the evacuation proceed. Every Valerian who made it safely onto a human ship was a victory. Every child who survived was a reason to keep fighting. "The last group is boarding now," Amy Rodriguez reported. "We'll have everyone off the Peaceful Dawn in 10 minutes. "Good," Morrison said. "What's the status of the space battle?" "The Krethak are pulling back," Lisa Grant said. She sounded surprised. "They're regrouping at the edge of the system." Morrison understood. The Krethak had attacked the Peaceful Dawn expecting an easy victory. They had overwhelmed the Valerian ship quickly. Then 3 human warships showed up and everything changed. The Krethak had lost dozens of ships to the human guns. They had lost hundreds of warriors to the human marines. Now they were being careful. They were learning that humans were not like other species. Humans didn't run away. Humans didn't surrender. Humans fought with a ferocity that the Krethak had never encountered before. "Keep weapons hot," Morrison ordered. "If they come at us again, we hit them twice as hard." But the Krethak weren't coming back. Not yet. They were waiting, watching, trying to figure out what to do about these strange primates from the death world who refused to lose. On the horizon, Captain Nick Foster was getting reports from his damage control teams. "How bad is it?" he asked his chief engineer. "Port engines are damaged but functional," the engineer replied. "We can still fight, we can still move, but we're down to about 60% thrust. If we need to run, we're going to be slow." "We're not running," Foster said. "We came here to save lives. We're not leaving until every single Valerian is safe." On the Defiant, things were worse. The bridge had taken a direct hit early in the battle. Captain Kelly Shaw and 3 of her officers were dead. The ship was being commanded from auxiliary control by Lieutenant Commander Carl Hughes. He was young and scared, but doing his job. "Structural integrity is at 70%, his engineer reported. "We have hull breaches on 3 decks. Life support is on backup systems, but we can still fight if needed." "Then we keep fighting," Hughes said. "Captain Shaw wouldn't want us to give up now." 10 minutes later, the last Valerian stepped off the Peaceful Dawn and onto the Valiant. The evacuation was complete. All 14,000 civilians were safe on human ships. Santos did one final sweep of the Peaceful Dawn to make sure the Krethak didn't wait long. Their fleet regrouped at the edge of the system and then came rushing back. But this time they were more careful. This time they knew what they were facing. "Contact!" Lisa Grant shouted. All remaining Krethak vessels inbound. They're coming from multiple vectors, trying to surround us. Morrison counted the enemy ships on his tactical display. 47 vessels. Still more than 10 times the number of human ships. But the Krethak had learned respect. They weren't charging in blindly anymore. "Defensive formation," Morrison ordered. "Protect the peaceful dawn and keep the Valerian civilians safe. Foster, Shaw, form up on me." The 3 human warships positioned themselves in a triangle around the damaged Valerian colony ship. Any Krethak that wanted to attack the civilians would have to go through them first. "Weapons charged and ready," Danny Chen reported. "All batteries fire when they're in range," Morrison said. "Make every shot count." The Krethak came in fast. Their ships split into 3 groups, each targeting 1 human vessel. They had learned that spreading out made them harder to hit. They had learned that the human railguns needed direct line of sight to be effective. They were learning. But it wouldn't save them. The Valiant shook as enemy weapons hit its hull. Bioelectric pulses crackled across the armor, trying to fry internal systems. The lights flickered on the bridge. "Shields holding at 70%, Amy Rodriguez called out. "Minor damage to outer hull sections." "Return fire," Morrison ordered calmly. The Valiant's guns spoke. Railgun rounds streaked through space at incredible velocity. Each round carried so much kinetic energy that even a glancing hit could disable an enemy ship. A direct hit destroyed them completely. 3 Krethak vessels exploded in quick succession, their wreckage scattered into space, glowing from the heat of impact. But more kept coming. On the horizon, Nick Foster was fighting his own battle. His damaged engines meant he couldn't maneuver as well as before. The Krethak noticed and focused their attacks on him. "Taking heavy fire," Foster's tactical officer shouted. "Multiple hits on port side." "Reroute power from non-essential systems to shields," Foster ordered. "And get me firing solutions on those bugs. If they want to dance, let's dance." The horizon's weapons blazed. Missiles and railgun fire cut through the enemy formation. Foster's ship might have been hurt, but it could still bite hard. On the Defiant, Lieutenant Commander Carl Hughes was doing his best to keep his damaged ship in the fight. With the bridge destroyed, he was commanding from auxiliary control. Systems were failing all around him, but he refused to give up. "Sir, we're losing attitude control," his helmsman reported. "Maneuvering thrusters are not responding." "Switch to main engines for course corrections," Hughes said. "It'll burn more fuel, but it'll work." A group of 5 Krethak ships broke off from the main attack and headed straight for the Defiant. They must have identified it as the weakest link. They planned to destroy it and break the human defensive formation. "Incoming!" the tactical officer shouted. 5 ships attack Vector Alpha 3. Hughes made a split-second decision. "All weapons, focus fire on the lead ship. Ignore the others. I want that first one dead." The Defiant's guns concentrated on a single target. The lead Krethak ship took hit after hit. Its shields collapsed, its hull ruptured, it exploded in a ball of fire. But the other 4 kept coming. "Brace for impact," Hughes ordered. The 4 Krethak ships opened fire at close range. The Defiant shuddered under the assault. Alarms screamed. Damage reports flooded in. "Hull breach on deck 7, someone shouted. "Emergency bulkheads closing. Fire control is offline for forward batteries," another voice called out. "Switch to manual targeting," Hughes commanded. "Keep shooting until we have nothing left." The Defiant's remaining weapons continued to fire. 1 Krethak ship went down, then another. But the ship was taking damage faster than it could deal it out. On the Valiant's bridge, Morrison saw what was happening. "The Defiant is in trouble. Lisa, can we support them?" "We're engaged with our own group," Grant replied. "If we break formation, we leave the peaceful dawn exposed." Morrison cursed under his breath. He was trapped. If he moved to help the Defiant, the Valerian civilians would be vulnerable. If he didn't help, the Defiant might be destroyed. There was no good choice. And then something changed. New contacts, Ben Hayes shouted. Multiple ships dropping out of faster than light. Transponders identify them as human. It's the Sentinel and the Fifth Fleet. Morrison's heart jumped. On the tactical screen, he saw them appear. 20 fresh human warships materialized in space, their weapons already hot and ready. "This is Admiral Peter Kane of the EDS Retribution," a voice came over the comm. "We got your message, Morrison. Sorry we're late to the party, but we're here now." The Fifth Fleet hit the Krethak like a tidal wave. 20 fresh ships with full weapons and no damage. They tore into the enemy with precision and overwhelming firepower. Railgun rounds filled space like a meteor shower. Missiles streaked toward their targets. Energy weapons, which the newer human ships carried, lanced through Krethak hulls. The Krethak formation broke. They had been fighting 3 damaged human ships and barely winning. Now they faced 23 human vessels. The odds had reversed completely. "They're retreating," Lisa Grant said. She sounded like she couldn't believe it. "The Krethak are running away." Morrison watched the enemy ships break off and flee. Part of him wanted to chase them down. Part of him wanted to make them pay for every Valerian they had hurt. But that wasn't why they were here. "Let them go," Morrison ordered. "We're not here for revenge. We're here to save lives. Mission accomplished." Rick Santos's voice came over the comm from the Marine deck. "Captain, all civilians are still secure. No injuries among the Valerians during the battle. They're shaken up but okay." "Good work, Commander," Morrison said. He felt exhaustion wash over him. The adrenaline that had kept him going was fading. "Everyone did damn good work today." Admiral Kane's face appeared on Morrison's screen. He was an older man with white hair and a stern face. But he was smiling now. "Jack, you crazy son of a gun. When Command got your message about taking on a Krethak swarm with 3 ships, half of us thought you'd lost your mind." "And the other half?" Morrison asked. "The other half grabbed every ship we could find and came running," Kane replied. "Because that's what we do. We back up our own. You should have waited for us, though." "Those civilians didn't have time to wait," Morrison said. "Every minute counted. We did what we had to do." Kane nodded. "I know, and you did it well. We'll take it from here. Get your ships to the rally point. You've earned a rest." The 3 battered human ships limped toward the rally point, surrounded by the protective screen of the Fifth Fleet. Around them, the Krethak were gone. The battle was over. On the Valiant, the crew began damage control and repairs. Engineers worked to fix the broken systems. Medical teams continued to care for wounded Valerians. Marines cleaned their weapons and checked their armor. In the cargo bays, the Valerian families who had been rescued were starting to relax. The immediate danger had passed. They were on human ships, surrounded by human warriors who had proven they would die before letting harm come to those under their protection. Morrison walked through the ship, checking on his crew. He stopped in the medical bay where Dr. Martinez was still treating patients. "How are they?" Morrison asked. "Most injuries are minor," Martinez replied. "Burns, cuts, broken bones, nothing I can't handle. The Valerians are a tough species, tougher than they look. They just aren't fighters." "They don't need to be," Morrison said. "Not while we're around." He continued his walk through the ship. In one cargo bay, he found a group of Valerian children gathered around Marine Jake Miller. The big man was teaching them a simple card game, using hand gestures since they didn't speak much English. "Captain on deck," someone said. The Marines started to stand at attention. "As you were," Morrison said. "Continue what you're doing." One of the Valerian children looked up at Morrison. "Are you the captain?" the child asked through a translator device. "Yes, I am," Morrison replied. "Thank you for saving us," the child said. "I was very scared. But then your soldiers came and they killed all the bad bugs. They were very brave." Morrison knelt down. "They were brave. But you know what? You were brave too." You stayed hidden and stayed quiet and did exactly what you needed to do to survive. That takes courage." The child smiled at him. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything. This was why they had come. This was why they had risked their lives. For moments like this, for children who could smile again because humans had answered their call for help. Morrison stood and continued his walk. He found Rick Santos in the Marine Armory, cleaning his weapons alongside his troops. "We lost 2 good people today," Santos said without looking up. "Crawford and Ross. They gave their lives for aliens they'd never met before." "They died heroes," Morrison said. "They died doing what was right. That's all any of us can ask for." "I know," Santos replied. "But it still hurts. They were my people, my responsibility." "And you led them well," Morrison said. "You got 14,000 civilians out alive. You cleared an enemy infestation against overwhelming odds. Crawford and Ross would be proud of what you accomplished." Santos nodded slowly. "I hope so, sir." "I really hope so." Morrison left him to his grief and made his way back to the bridge. Amy Rodriguez was there, coordinating with the Fifth Fleet on next steps. 2 weeks after the Battle of the Peaceful Dawn, Jack Morrison stood in the Grand Assembly Hall on the Valerian homeworld. The room was massive, big enough to hold thousands, and it was full. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the seats. They had all come to witness something that had never happened before in galactic history. Morrison felt uncomfortable in his dress uniform. The formal clothes were stiff and itchy. He was a ship captain, not a politician. He belonged on a bridge, not standing in front of thousands of aliens. But duty was duty. The Valerian High Council sat at the front of the room. 5 ancient Valerians, their bodies covered in silver and gold leaves, watched from elevated seats. The High Counselor, the oldest and most respected, stood and walked forward. "Captain Morrison," the High Counselor said. His voice was old but strong, amplified through speakers so everyone could hear. "2 weeks ago, my people faced death. A colony ship carrying 14,000 civilians sent out a desperate call for help. We expected to mourn them. We prepared funeral ceremonies. We wrote their names in the Book of Lost Souls." The hall was silent. Every eye was on Morrison. "But they are not lost," the High Counselor continued. "They are alive. They are home. Their children play in gardens. Their families embrace. And this is because of you and your people." The High Counselor gestured, and holographic displays appeared throughout the hall. They showed footage from the battle, the 3 human ships diving into impossible odds, the railguns firing with deadly accuracy, the Marines clearing the Peaceful Dawn deck by deck, the final stand when the Krethak tried one last attack. The assembled aliens watched in silence. Most had never seen human military forces in action before. They watched the Valiant take hits that would have destroyed their own ships and keep fighting. They watched human Marines face horrors that would have broken most species and press forward anyway. "The galaxy has many names for your people," the High Counselor said when the footage ended. "Deathworlders, the crazy ones, the species too aggressive for civilized space. But I will tell you what we Valerians will call you from this day forward. We will call you friends, saviors, heroes." The hall exploded with applause. Aliens from dozens of species stood and cheered. Representatives who had previously looked down on humanity now showed respect. The stars had witnessed what happened at the Peaceful Dawn, and the story had spread across the galaxy. After the ceremony, Morrison found himself surrounded by reporters from many worlds. All of them wanted to know the same thing. Why had humanity risked so much for aliens they barely knew? Morrison thought carefully before answering. He knew his words would be heard across the galaxy. "On Earth, we have a saying," Morrison began. "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. When we heard that distress call, we had a choice. We could follow our orders and stay on patrol. We could be safe. We could be smart. Or we could do what was right. For us, it wasn't really a choice at all. A reporter from the Zenobian Collective asked a question. Zenobians were crystalline beings who communicated through light. But were you not afraid? Your ships faced overwhelming numbers. Morrison smiled. Of course we were afraid. Fear is natural. Fear keeps you alive. But courage isn't about not being afraid. Courage is about doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified. Our world taught us that lesson every day. We faced predators and diseases and disasters. We could either give up and die, or we could fight. We chose to fight. We will always choose to fight. Another reporter, this one from the Pluthar Empire, asked, "What did you think when you saw how many enemy ships there were?" "I thought about those 14,000 civilians," Morrison replied honestly. "I thought about the children hiding in cargo bays while monsters tried to kill them. I thought about my own daughter back on Earth, and I knew we had to try, even if the odds were bad, even if we might die. Some things are worth dying for. Protecting innocent lives is one of those things." The questions continued for over an hour. Every reporter wanted to understand what made humans different, what made them willing to risk everything for strangers. Over the following months, the impact of that single battle spread across the galaxy. The Krethak, their reputation shattered, pulled back from their aggressive expansion. They had learned that attacking civilians came with consequences. Several species that had been suffering under Krethak raids suddenly found themselves free. More importantly, humanity's reputation changed overnight. Before the Battle of the Peaceful Dawn, most aliens saw humans as dangerous primitives from a hell world. They were scary neighbors that you stayed away from. Now they were seen as protectors, guardians. When the Galactic Council decided to create an official peacekeeping force, they asked humanity to lead it. Back on Earth, the crews of the Valiant, the Horizon, and the Defiant were celebrated as heroes. Parades were held in their honor. Schools taught their story. Children played games pretending to be human Marines fighting Krethak. But the people who were actually there remembered the price. 17 Marines had died in the battle. 4 ship crew members were killed when the Defiant's bridge was hit. Captain Kelly Shaw, who had commanded the Defiant, was among the dead. At a memorial service in Washington, D.C., Rick Santos spoke for all of them. He stood at a podium in front of a wall covered with names, the names of every human who had died in the battle. "We didn't go to that fight expecting to die," Santos said. His voice was steady but heavy with emotion. "We went expecting to save lives. Some of us paid the ultimate price for that, but every single one of those Marines knew what they were fighting for. They saw those Valerian children, they saw families huddled in fear, and they knew that some things are worth dying for." He paused and looked at the names on the wall. They were warriors from a warrior species, but more than that, they were human. And humans don't abandon the innocent. We don't turn away from those who need help. We don't calculate odds and decide if it's worth the risk. We see people in danger and we go. That's who we are. That's who we will always be. The crowd stood in silence, honoring those who had fallen. Years later, the Battle of the Peaceful Dawn was studied in military academies across the galaxy. Tactical analysts examined how 3 human ships held off a force 30 times their size. They studied the coordination between space and ground forces. They analyzed the weapon systems and defensive strategies. Psychologists studied the human capacity for self-sacrifice. How could an entire species be willing to risk death for strangers? What evolutionary pressures created such behavior? The answer, they found, was simple. On Earth, cooperation meant survival. Protecting the tribe meant protecting yourself. Humans had learned over millions of years that standing together made them stronger. Historians marked the battle as a turning point. It was the moment when humanity truly became part of the galactic community. Not as junior members or scary outsiders, but as equals, as leaders, as heroes. The peaceful dawn itself was eventually repaired and returned to service. But the Valerians renamed it. They called it Human's Promise, in honor of those who saved it. On its hull, they placed a memorial listing the names of every human who participated in the battle. Special mention was given to those who died. Whenever that ship traveled through space, passing other vessels and stations, everyone who saw it knew the story. They knew that somewhere out there, on a small blue world that the galaxy had once dismissed as too dangerous and too violent, lived a species that would cross the stars to save strangers. For Jack Morrison, life eventually returned to normal. He continued to command the Valiant, patrolling the borders and keeping the peace. But things were different now. When his ship entered a system, other species didn't flee in fear. They welcomed him. They thanked him. They asked for his help with problems. One day, several years after the battle, Morrison received a communication from the Valerian homeworld. It was from a young Valerian, now grown into adulthood. "Captain Morrison," the message began. "You probably don't remember me. I was just a child when you saved the peaceful dawn. I was one of the ones hiding in the cargo bay. I remember being so scared that I couldn't stop shaking. And then your Marines came. I remember one of them, a female with kind eyes, told me everything would be okay." Morrison remembered. That had been Lucy Patterson. "I wanted you to know what your actions meant," the message continued. "Because of you, I grew up. I went to school. I fell in love. I got married last month. My wife and I are expecting our first child. None of this would have happened if you hadn't come. My entire life exists because humans answered our call." Morrison watched the message twice. Then he saved it in his personal files. On days when the job seemed hard, when he questioned whether it was all worth it, he would watch it again. And he would remember why he wore the uniform. The message was clear. Every life saved mattered. Every child who grew up mattered. Every family that stayed together mattered. The risks were worth it. The sacrifices were worth it. Because at the end of the day, humans stood for something. They stood for protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Rick Santos eventually retired from active service and became an instructor at the Marine Academy. He taught young soldiers about tactics and strategy. But more importantly, he taught them about honor and duty and sacrifice. Being a Marine isn't about being the toughest or the strongest, he would tell his students. It's about being willing to stand between innocent people and danger. It's about looking at impossible odds and saying, "Not today." It's about remembering that you're part of something bigger than yourself. His students would go on to serve across the galaxy, carrying those lessons with them. Amy Rodriguez eventually got her own ship command. She captained the EDS Guardian, a new warship specifically designed for peacekeeping operations. She carried on the tradition Morrison had started, always ready to answer distress calls, no matter where they came from. Danny Chen became a weapons designer, creating new systems to help human ships protect others even more effectively. His innovations saved countless lives in the years that followed. Dr. Claire Martinez opened a medical school that taught humans and aliens together. She believed that understanding each other's biology would help them better protect each other. Her students would become the finest doctors in the galaxy. The crew of the Valiant, the Horizon, and the Defiant scattered across space and time. But they all carried the same message. When someone calls for help, humans answer. Always. No matter the distance, no matter the danger, no matter the odds. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never threaten the innocent while humans are around. Never assume that distance or danger will stop them. Never doubt that when you send out a desperate call for help, somewhere in the darkness, a human ship is already on its way. The Krethak never again attacked civilian vessels. They had learned what happened when you made humans angry. Other aggressive species took note and modified their behavior. The galaxy became a safer place, simply because humans were watching. Years turned into decades, decades turned into centuries. The story of the Battle of the Peaceful Dawn passed into legend. But the lesson remained. Humanity had proven their place among the stars not through conquest or domination. They had earned it through courage and compassion and an unwavering commitment to protect the innocent. The stars bore witness to what happened that day. And the stars would never forget. In the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not their weapons or their ships or their warriors, but their refusal to stand by while others suffered. Their insistence that every life had value. Their belief that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing. The Deathworlders had answered the call, and in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever. Admiral Kane wants us to proceed to the Valerian homeworld, she reported. They're sending ships to repair the Peaceful Dawn and tow it back. We're to transport the civilians safely home. Then that's what we'll do, Morrison said. He settled into his command chair. Set course for the Valerian homeworld. Standard speed. No need to rush now. Let's give our guests a smooth ride home. As the Valiant turned toward its destination, Morrison allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had done it. Against all odds, they had saved 14,000 innocent lives. They had shown the galaxy what humanity stood for. They had proven that humans weren't just dangerous Deathworlders. They were protectors. They were heroes. The stars bore witness to what happened here today, and the message would spread across the galaxy. When you call for help, when you're in desperate need, when all hope seems lost, humans will answer. They will cross any distance. They will face any odds. They will risk everything to save the innocent. That was the human way. That would always be the human way. Body was left behind. He walked through the damaged corridors, checking every room, every closet, every hiding spot. He found no one. Everyone was safe. Ship is clear, he reported to Morrison. Everyone is accounted for. Good work, Commander, Morrison said. Bring your people home. As the Marines returned to the Valiant, Morrison looked at the Peaceful Dawn one last time. The ship was badly damaged. It would need months of repairs, but it had served its purpose. It had kept its passengers alive long enough for help to arrive. Detach docking tubes, Morrison ordered. Move us away from the Peaceful Dawn, nice and slow. Let's not stress our guests any more than necessary. The Valiant pulled away from the damaged colony ship. Around them, space was filled with debris from the battle. Pieces of destroyed Krethak vessels floated everywhere. The evidence of the fight was clear, and somewhere out there, the Krethak fleet watched and waited. Yes, sir, Santos said, helping the alien stand. And we're going to make sure everyone gets home safe. How many civilians? 14,000, the Valerian said. Most are in the upper cargo bays, but the Krethak are everywhere between here and there. Not for long, Santos promised. He opened his comm. Captain, we reached the survivors, starting evacuation, but we need to clear this ship first. Too many hostiles between here and the docking points. On the bridge of the Valiant, Morrison made his decision fast. Do it, Commander. Clear every deck. We'll hold the line out here. Santos grinned behind his helmet. You heard the captain. Time to clean house. All squads, we're going hunting. What followed was brutal close-quarters combat through the corridors of the Peaceful Dawn. The Marines moved deck by deck, room by room, clearing out the Krethak. They used breaching charges to blow through blocked doors. They used grenades to clear out nests. They used overwhelming firepower to eliminate any resistance. The Krethak fought hard. They fought with the desperation of a hive protecting itself. But they had never faced anything like humans before. These weren't gentle herbivores. These were apex predators from a world where the weak died and only the strong survived. him. They did it when everyone said humans were too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous. Humans always proved everyone wrong. The stars passed by outside the windows. Space was silent and cold and empty, but inside the Valiant, there was warmth and life and determination. There were people ready to risk everything for strangers. "All systems are green," Amy Rodriguez reported. "We're running at 100%. "Good," Morrison said. "Keep me updated on any changes. Everyone should rest while they can. When we get there, things are going to get rough." The crew nodded and went to their tasks. The ship continued its journey through the void, and somewhere ahead, 14,000 Valerians waited and hoped and prayed that help would come in time.